Welcome everyone. Thanks for showing up and welcome to the guys who are watching us online. My name is Jochem Verheul, and because this is a quite small audience, it would be just nice to make it an interactive session, right? So just if you have any questions, comments, or whatever, just feel free to interrupt me. I just made this presentation, right? So I made it to the annoyance of you.
Pretty late.
Yeah, really late. But I did it because many things have changed for me personally in the past year. Before that, I just had my presentations ready when needed. So in the presentation is also a bit of my journey as an entrepreneur. So feel free also to ask any kind of questions about that. So two things I want you to take with you after the presentation is that why did my first attempt failed? And the second one is why proof of stake is a good fit in the smart city context. A little bit about me. So my name is Jochem. I'm from a family of entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur my entire working life, so for the past 15 years now almost. And always with a focus on new technology. So I started off with building a web shop when I was a student still, and I designed t-shirts, and I made them and sold them via a web shop. But back in 2006, that was like high tech. And after that, when I graduated, I thought, okay, I want to push things a little bit bigger. So I started Itsavirus, the company that's still out there. And with Itsavirus, basically, of course, we didn't start off like this, right? So what we now do is we build bigger software platforms for either really big corporates or government institutions and startups usually. And what we do is building things that they cannot build for themselves. So usually there's some kind of complex factor in it, either from the technology perspective or it's complex from a conceptual perspective. What I always did is I reinvest the profit that we made into new ventures. So we had the stable cash flow from the company and then see if we can separate when we have a weird idea. Basically what I did, so separate table, 2 or 3 guys behind the desk and say, okay, just start working on it for a few months, see how far we go. And sometimes these things works out, and sometimes they fail, of course. But that's life. I will not only show you the winners. So what we did is we developed an exchange for digital out of home. So before 2014, when you wanted to purchase an advertisement space on big screens next to the highway, you needed to email guys or phone them and then send them via email your ad. And then the guy would go there, put a USB stick in it, and then your ad would maybe run for 2 weeks. And there was absolutely no way of interacting with the surrounding. So what we did, we connected these big screens to a magical thing called the internet. And we use the same protocols as you use online for real-time bidding. And the cool thing is, of course, that, for example, this thing, we had a small Kinect camera in it. So we saw that when the trains arrive at Amsterdam Central Station, we know that's a really busy moment. So at that moment, the Coca-Cola campaign would run, or we would have the big screens next to the highway. There's open data on how fast cars are driving. So we knew when there's traffic jam, so you could change your advertisement. So hey, are you stuck in traffic again? Maybe buy a bike, for example. When I left that company, I founded Effect AI. So back in 2015, we made a genetic algorithm on which we could let websites optimize themselves. And then it became 2017. The project evolved in a direction which I did not really feel comfortable with. So I exited the company early 2018, which was good for me. And then I started this thing. That's where this will be the subject of some parts of the presentation. So we did the first implementation of blockchain technology in public transport, but the idea was to build like a mobility blockchain that does ticketing, sharing data, and manage identities. So we went really, really far, right? So we did the app, we did the hardware, we did our own blockchain, everything more or less from scratch. And what is cool, that it actually worked. Let's see if it's, all right. We have to do it like this. Full screen. So there was a lot of fun, of course, to do, but in the end we didn't make it as a company. So we are working on taking our lessons learned and putting it into some kind of new perspective. We will talk about it later. But what was really cool about the project is that we really developed everything from scratch, because we started in mid-2017, and the state of blockchain technology back then, everybody was talking about it. And but if you would really try to program something on that particular blockchain, let's say Neo, for example, back then it was just not ready to be used in a production environment. So we decided to do everything ourselves, build our own blockchain, use a different consensus algorithm, and even do our own hardware. So the things that you saw in the bus were these ones. We printed the casing ourselves. We had like 6 3D printers at our office, which was again really a lot of fun to do, but it was therefore also a very, very expensive adventure. And I think that's one of the reasons that we just couldn't continue. So that's also,
so
yeah.
What blockchain consensus algorithm was this whole project based upon?
We used proof of elapsed time. Proof of elapsed time is from Sawtooth, and what it does, it uses the logic of the chips of the validators itself, so the hardware logic. So it's really difficult to tinker with it. So it's super safe, super fast, but it also has some challenges when it comes to building it from like a closed network to an open network, because all the validators should be really known in the network if you want to use that specific algorithm. So it was great because it was really super fast. As you can see in the video, you check in, you check out, and you just instantly pay. So that was great. But to build a more open network, that was a difficult challenge.
So scalability was a challenge.
Scalability, not necessarily, I think, but scalability and openness. So that is, I think, a trade-off for many blockchain projects. If you want to open up your project, allow multiple people to work on it, there is a security challenge, and if there is a security challenge, you need to have a safe consensus algorithm. And I said the safest consensus algorithm, especially back then, and even maybe even now, is still the proof of work. Proof of stake is getting there. So we just decided to take it from a totally different perspective, which was a good decision to start on, but it's like everything, it has its pros and cons.
Oh, so the transactions were on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Okay, and why do you think that proof of elapsed time was the best fit for this whole project? Why not any other consensus algorithm?
Yeah, because proof of work is too slow. Because if I check in and then check out, and I have to wait for 5 seconds even, it's already too slow. So it needs to be super, super fast. And the other challenge is that back then, 2017, other consensus algorithms like proof of stake were not that far. So we decided to use something. The proof elapsed time is developed by guys from IBM. They have been working on it for quite a long time, so it was ready to be used, and it worked pretty effectively. So
I don't know much about proof of elapsed time personally, but I was wondering who validates those transactions, and how is the network like? What are the nodes, and how do they get their rewards for validating the transactions and whatnot?
Yeah.
Could you run us through proof of elapsed time?
There's no reward in the proof of elapsed time scheme. So there's no way you can maybe program it in, but we didn't investigate it. We just looked for the best way to deliver that product back then. And we had mechanisms planned where we say, okay, small, like a transaction fee automatically goes to the validators, but it's not a logical consequence of the algorithm. So it's designed for a closed system. So
it's more for the private networks.
It was designed for a private blockchain. Yeah, there are projects that use it for a more open system as well, but to get from private to open was the big one of the challenges with this project.
Okay, and this project was in a partnership with the government, is it?
This was in partnership with, I think, the third biggest public transport company in Europe.
Wow.
So, yeah. The funny thing is, we had many things aligned, right? So great partnerships, guys from Ericsson on board, good developers. So we were really getting there. But then, just think of the fact that Uber also just still does not make money, some kind of magical way. We were
so
just
financing was
financing the adventure is really a challenge, and of course we had many other challenges as well. So I've written a few things down to make sure. Hopefully you don't make the same mistakes I did. So first reason is, of course, the technology is really complex, especially if you want to scale it to an open network, and to make it profitable, because you can only work with really small fees, and then if you want to make some money out of it, it becomes a big challenge. For me personally, what happened is that you get distracted, right? Because you get calls from Daimler, from the government. You have to go through to the government in the Netherlands. You have to go to the government in Singapore. They all want to talk to you. Even the United Nations, you have to speak there. So it's like, whoa, you're really getting there. But in the end, if you don't focus on building your product, don't forget, or no, you don't forget it, of course, but you have to keep your eyes on the money as well. Really focus on that. So that was, for me, it was a big distraction. So I thought, hey, if I'm in this kind of, if we have that much traction, of course we would be able to somehow monetize it, and that just didn't happen. And then if these things didn't happen, then like everything is also not happening. So it became a challenge to manage it. So my lessons.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, you had mentioned IBM, and I was curious if it was considered to use their blockchain product to help you in this case. And you said something, but I didn't catch it. You were considering IBM, or did you say
the proof of elapsed time consensus algorithm is part of the Sawtooth project, which is developed by guys from IBM.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So it's the hyperledger.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
So was it licensed by IBM, or is it?
No,
like
it's fully open source. Yeah. Of course, we really took a good look at, especially that, because we didn't want to end up in a situation where they say, "Oh, sorry, but now you have to pay." So of course.
Okay. So, and you all had your own independent token on it.
Sorry, your own independent.
You all had your own independent token.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, the token that ran on our own chain.
Okay. So as a user, I am supposed to, or I was supposed to transfer money to this wallet where. Yeah. Okay. And what about the volatility? Like what was the token backed upon, and
it was
the value?
A stable token which was backed by the euro, and we almost had like an electronic money license where because we accepted the fact that we would not put the token on an exchange, or you could not buy the token with Bitcoin, then it becomes possible to regulate the token. So the money would end up on a third party bank account, but we never got that far.
And how many buses were these tested upon? Like
it was like 2 months with 24 buses, something like that.
Okay.
So a good thing was that it like the system never broke down. We had to work really hard until 5 o'clock in the morning for a week to actually make that deadline. But when it was in there, it worked pretty nicely. And the feedback that we got was like, yeah, the beep is not hard enough if you check out. Okay, fine. Perfect feedback.
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah, of course.
What about the users? Were they really open to using a new method of this transaction, and how are they managing their private keys and then the whole public key thing?
We made it super easy to create a wallet. So it's like click in the app, and you generated a wallet, and that's it. If you scan a QR code on a piece of paper, you would be able to collect tokens. It was really easy to use it.
So were the people really willing to be using this new method, or what was the feedback?
Yeah, so the feedback was, it worked really nice. Thank you. There's finally some form of digital payment in the Netherlands, because this was the first digital payment system that was there. And again, the feedback was primarily on the beeps in the hardware. There's a whole story about the beeps, right? So. Yeah, I
so
wouldn't bother with you. It was really a challenge to get the right one in there.
So there was user adoption, but no profits generated from that. You all were.
Yeah, there was definitely. Yeah. We had a few thousand users. That was nice.
Okay.
So yeah, but to get out of the proof of concept stage, and then actually into reality, you enter like a minefield of challenges, right? Which are political. You challenge the status quo. So it is. You need a lot of money to burn, and then you can maybe make it. So my lessons is just make a really solid planning. Keep your eyes on the planning. Don't get distracted, and keep your eyes on just making money, because then you can last really long. So not all of the ideas were really bad, I think. So lessons learned, starting over, and try to continue, but in a totally different way. And so what I did is, of course, first I was like, shit, it's really bad. We had to really close the office, fire everybody. So I took a small break, look in the mirror, and basically looked at the same challenge again. And try not to complain that much, because your big plan has failed, right? So that's it's not nice if it happens. But then after a few weeks, you're like, okay, you have to make a new plan, get started again, and execute on it. What was the challenge again that we tried to fix? Basically this, right? So. You see it in Indonesia. It's a really good example of poorly managed mobility challenges. It's so busy. The roads are not designed for it. This is in Jakarta, by the way. And so we wanted to make some kind of solution that can help these challenges. Technical challenge or technical solution only is not enough. Just some numbers. 450 cities with over 1 million inhabitants. And if you just take an objective look to it, I really think these cities are just broke, right? If people are dying and getting sick and spending hours in traffic to just travel short distance, then these cities are really having big challenges. You can just say they're broke, I think. And one of the funny things, or it's totally not funny, but one of the remarkable things is, of course, that the companies that are entering the ecosystem, like Uber, Lyft, and all the other companies that claim to have a solution for it, they only add to the problem. They exploit drivers, the more cars on the road, and the price of mobility services actually increases. So instead of making it better, it only gets worse. So how to solve it? Well, the cool thing about the mobility economy, of course, in general, is that it's like everything that is happening in what people call a smart city is happening in the mobility industry. There are many stakeholders, governments are involved, it has big impact on lives, there's a big difference between rich and poor, so everything that's going on in the city is going on in the mobility industry as well. What we found out is that there's a huge competition between these companies, and there's totally unwillingness to collaborate with each other. Standardization, there are good attempts by foundations and organizations, but there's really little standardization. And there's so much going on, right? So there's autonomous driving, the whole mobility as a service economy starts to become real. So yeah, how to manage it? It's a big challenge. So a few things that I've learned working in the field now for almost 2 years is that what I just mentioned, there are so many different stakeholders, and they each have their own agenda. They are financed by a big company, and they want to make money, and no way they're going to collaborate with other companies. Maybe it's better for the bigger cause, but it's not better for their spreadsheets. Even working together with public transport companies, it's not on their roadmap, so they just don't do it. Which is understandable from their perspective, because they are in this, if they get distracted, they might also not make it. So, but the unwillingness, the total unwillingness to collaborate is really, really remarkable. The second thing is bigger government institutions, especially, they have to plan ahead, right? So they work with legacy code, a lot of legacy code. So systems that are 10, 20 years old, they have to be maintained, and then to work to add something new, it's a big challenge for them and for us as well if we want to build something on top of these systems. And they also make remarkable decisions when it comes to thinking ahead. We had discussions in the Netherlands with the bigger mobility companies, and their response was like, yeah, but in 5 years we want to be ready for credit cards. It's like, in 5 years? I have 2 kids, they will never use a card probably for payments at all. Why? Okay, it is how it is. And when it comes to blockchain technology, it's not offensive to them, because I understand that they don't understand it, but there's a big knowledge gap. So the guys that needed to make the decisions, they were intrigued. They thought it was cool that it actually worked, but then to make decisions, it was it took a long time for them to make them, so too long. So with all these lessons learned, I tried to get something new started. We just started it, right? So it is. But the first thing that I did was get my other company, Itsavirus, up and running again. So get more projects, make sure that we turn from a cash flow negative situation into a cash flow positive situation again, and then we can slowly try to reinvest it into basically something totally new. And to have that focus, we just say, okay, we build a ride-hail application, an Uber-like application, but then fully open source, no business model, and decentralized. Yeah. So we aim to organize it as a DAO. So I don't even want to make money on it. I don't want to own it. And the whole idea of the previous company was also just to help to improve society a little bit. So the good thing about this moment now is that we really can try to reach that goal in a new way. Yeah, a few cool things are that the fact that if you follow the industry, you read a lot of things about Uber, and you read how they exploit drivers. They don't share data with cities, so we can just start from scratch, new. And we, of course, payments are peer-to-peer. So if you pay a taxi driver, you pay the taxi driver directly. So there's no middleman. Privacy we can protect by using the digital identities concept, and the bigger objective is to make sure that access to mobility services will remain in the hands of the public. And I'm getting personally annoyed if there's a big company trying to exploit the situation where they are between demand and supply and having a big cut out of it, because you can do that. It's already being done with information. It's already being done with information or with entertainment, but with the freedom to go from A to B. Come on, give us a break. So we used the Cosmos SDK, and we did it because, first of all, maybe the last point. First of all, there's a great community behind it, working really, really hard. And they help us out, right? So that was a good thing for me to see, especially coming out of a situation where we built everything ourselves without a big community. So it's good to see that there's an active community, just keeps on pushing. And because it's Cosmos, we can connect with other companies and foundations that work on Cosmos as well via the Cosmos Hub. Tendermint is proven tech, of course. Binance even uses it, and yeah, one of the big reasons. I don't know if did somebody try the Cosmos SDK? If you're a developer, it's pretty nice to check it. You have a small network up and running within a day, so you can just start building your application on it and try to scale it by adding more nodes, and then of course it can become pretty complex as well, but to have that basis, which took us a few months to set up initially, is a reasonably good developer would take it a day, maybe two, to have it up and running. But then you have the basis.
So this works on top of the Cosmos blockchain?
Yeah, but with Cosmos, you use the SDK to create your own blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
You use then Tendermint to connect to the hub. So that's one of the nice things, that you still have your own chain with your own rule sets, with your own contracts, that is not being disrupted by CryptoKitties, for example. So you can have your separate project totally, but you are part of a bigger community as well. So that was, for me, it was the killer argument. So it's easy to set up. You have all the pros of, for example, Ethereum, but also the pros of having it for yourself.
So as a user, I don't have to be dealing with Cosmos in any way. It would be only open mobility network. I wouldn't even have to be having Cosmos tokens and then converting them to the...
Yeah, in theory that is possible, right? So you can exchange tokens from one hub to the other. Mm-hmm. But to get this working, you don't need to have Cosmos tokens at all. So we will have our own tokens with our own rule set, and we can allow other tokens to make them exchangeable with each other if we would like to do so. We haven't decided what to do on that aspect yet.
And this token will be backed upon?
Yeah, I think the situation that we had with VMC was a good situation, where there is a token that is being used as an investment vehicle, and there is a token that is being used in the network. So if we have a transaction token that's just stable, and then a token that it belongs to participants in the network that want to support it. For example, if you run a node, or if you want to contribute in some other kind of way, you purchase tokens, but you also have something to say in the DAO, and then work from there. So there are two different types of incentives, which I think they should be separated as well. So the one can be used for speculation, but I don't want to be traveling with a speculative token.
One more thing, I'm sorry.
No worries.
One thing that is really on my mind is that you said you had to stop the previous company because one of the major reasons being financing.
Yeah.
What about this? Because this has no business model as well, and there's how do you profit? How do you get things running? How would you have the devices in the specific vehicles, and how do you finance?
Yeah, so I turn it into a situation where I can finance it fully myself again. So that's why we have the software company up and running. We spend a part of our profits investing into this. So we turn into a situation where we can just last for decades. So.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Yeah.
So the idea of DAO, decentralized autonomous, it's like crazy. When I first encountered blockchain, I think 2017, I met this 60 years old guy. Like he cannot join Gojek. Like it's like Uber for Indonesia, because his motorbike clunky, it's just not fair, right? Because the company, the centralized system decided which one can join and which cannot, right?
Yeah.
So with this model, decentralized, everyone can join, right?
Yeah.
And then I just thought the problem is, I think we're still 5 years away, because maybe this 60 years old guy cannot use blockchain, it has to be easy to use by people. So my question is how to counter this kind of problem, the adoption is still our problem in blockchain industry. What's your idea, when you think you build this, you maybe already had some thoughts about that.
Yeah. So one problem that we that I cannot fix is the public-private key situation. So you always need a wallet that needs a private key for you to use it. So that is a big challenge, but you can smoothen it a little bit by making it super easy to create a wallet. Just click, and the software will generate a wallet for you. So it should be super easy. But then again, let's say I log out, I need to be able to log in again. So I need to have stored my my private key somewhere. That will be that's something that I cannot fix by myself. That is one of the biggest usability challenges, of course. So, but then again, with our previous app, it was really simple. Click. But if you would have lost your key, you still need it again to log in.
So if you lose your keys, you lose all of your funds which are in your wallet.
Yeah, you lose access to your funds. Yeah.
Anyway, I have one more question. So this is a proof of stake model.
Yeah.
So are you trying to say that the drivers are the stakeholders that forge and validate the blocks, or who does that bit, the nodes part?
Yeah. So I think that the validators should be different actors than the drivers, because it always needs some kind of technical knowledge to set up a node to participate. And then the cool thing with Cosmos, of course, is that you can then you can ask the drivers to lend them your tokens to you in order to have more voting power in the network. So you can have you can let them participate and benefit in some kind of way, but I think again there are two different participants. One type of participant is working on maintaining the network, making it secure, and the other one just delivers the service. So different kind of actor.
So I ran the train of my thoughts, but let me. Okay, so the stakeholders, the basically the miners, will be rewarded with the transaction fees.
No. No, so the stakeholders, the idea of the DAO is that we have a token which will have like voting power and other things that we want to connect to it. We're still not finished on these ideas, but the idea is to give people incentives to run it, and so that token is not a token that people use to travel with. So you have a dual token structure.
Okay. No, I don't really get the model. Could you try to simplify or elaborate on this? Because as a miner, as a forger in proof of stake, how do I benefit from maintaining your network?
Yeah, so on the Cosmos blockchain, it's more or less automatically that there will always be tokens minted. And these tokens will be used to as a reward to the miners.
But that's Cosmos, right?
Yeah, we use Cosmos blockchain.
Okay.
So we use if you use the SDK, you basically use a version of the Cosmos stack, and in that it's programmed in that there will always be more tokens.
And as I understand, in the previous company, what you all did was you all created those devices, which was supposed to be scanned by the users. I think that's the same model which is going to be over here.
No, I totally. Let's not do the hardware again. No. So what we do is we make one app with a driver feature and a passenger feature, and that's it. Yeah. And then the situation with the QR code is really nice because the QR code is super robust. So you can scan the QR code in order to validate that you are actually there. Great. But the situation with the terminals, it was hardware is it's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
It's to have something in production. Yeah.
I'm sure.
No. And also from an adoption perspective, it's just super nice to make the software that anyone can use. Anyone can download, and in really poor regions, all they need is a super old Android telephone, and they have digital ticketing in their bus, for example. Great, let's go. And if they would need additional hardware, it will make it more difficult.
So your previous implementation was on the public transport.
Yeah.
How about this one? Will this also be focusing only on the public transport? Or
No.
So it's directly challenging Uber.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, because you see that there are people who want to try to new things, but public transport companies, they are attached to so many. There's a certain status quo, there's a lot of money involved, and so it's really difficult to come up with a better solution. Even if everyone agrees that it's a better solution, it will take you a lot of time to actually get there, because there are powers going on that I really don't know what's going on. So we just neglect it. We say, okay, we try to incentivize just people to come up with a different way on how to travel. But I want to make it in such a way that we can use it as an open source MaaS, so mobility as a service application on which you can integrate public transport if they want to. But I'm not going to try to do that again, because we have to talk too much, too many times with too many people, and really be lucky if you get the opportunity to do maybe a proof of concept. So no.
I don't know much about the tech that lies behind Uber and Gojek, but how about the algorithm that decides the pricing? So if I want to go from here to Sanur,
you check the Telegram group or not?
Is it the same algorithm that's behind?
No, of course not. No, so that was part of a good discussion, I think, on our Telegram group today. I just don't know what how to get. I have ideas on it, but I think one of the best mentions on it was to say just leave it to the taxi drivers, leave it to the people who actually deliver the service, and just don't do pricing.
So they decide the pricing.
Yeah, but I also don't want to end up in a situation where the pricing becomes non-transparent for travelers. Or there's in Amsterdam you have the airport. And the situation with taxi drivers there, it's remarkable. It's corrupt in many kinds of ways. So people who enter Amsterdam for the first time sometimes pay like 500 euros for a taxi ride of 30 minutes, and so they get screwed.
Which more or less is the same thing over here. I mean,
Yeah,
if you want to get from the airport to in the city, or maybe if you want to travel around Ubud and you don't use Gojek or one of those.
Yeah, so you want to have the benefits of system, a digital system where you know that you get a fair price. So and to have, but to set a price requires a central element to determine the price. But who is going to do that? So we have to leave that up to the DAO to set a price locally. I think that would be the greatest thing, but it has to be a fair price.
Yeah, 2 cents from me. There could be some algorithm which maps and understands the pricing from for let's say 10 kilometers, and then according to the traffic and whatnot, and then it gives a range to the driver.
Yeah.
So if it usually is supposed to be 50,000 rupiah, the driver should get a range between 40 to 60, and then he can be deciding. And then there could be. But
then from the more extreme DAO perspective, it is of course, if you determine the range, there is already something determined, and so that is that will be interesting to find a solution for that.
Anyway, getting back to the blockchain. As a user, do I then pay for the transaction? The transaction fee, because in blockchains we do, right?
Yeah, there is of course always a fee necessary, but that's why we have the validators who participate in making sure that there's a safe network, and they get rewarded with the different token. And we have the situation where there's an inflationary model where there's tokens printed every time to make sure that situation can continue. So it can never occur that, so let's say I run a node, so I want to get rewarded, who's going to pay me? And with Cosmos there is always the situation where there's additional tokens minted to give that as a reward.
But then, this bothers me as a user because, firstly, for me, if I see that Gojek estimates this pricing, for me that's the fair price. But in this model, it's the driver that selects the pricing, plus I have to pay a transaction fee over it.
You're not paying the transaction fee because that's in a different set of tokens. So you're not paying the transaction fee, and of course, first of all, you're now paying big time to Uber. So only with that percentage, it's like 20, 30, 40%, depending on how they can exploit you. So if that portion only will go away, it will create a better situation anyway. But I agree with the point where we need to have a fair pricing system where you just know that you get a
better pricing,
a fair price.
It's
okay to pay and maybe pay 5% more in a certain situation, but you don't want to end up in a situation where you just pay double, triple, or even more. So and that is a challenge.
So basically, the algorithm will make sure that the drivers don't charge the amount of profits that Uber and Gojek make. So if I'm supposed to reach there in 20,000, the algorithm will make sure that the driver will charge me something less than that, because in the same context, Gojek would charge me 40,000 or maybe 30,000, right?
There are. It's still a good question. We can of course scrape the prices from Uber and Gojek and just see what they do and offer the same, but then we don't use the so there's no fee for the intermediate. So you pay the same price, but the amount of money will just go straight to the driver. So we can use something like that. But I was even considering there's quite some literature on the McDonald's Big Mac, because they, no matter where you travel on Earth, you always pay more or less the same amount of money for a Big Mac compared to like what you spend normally on a monthly basis on housing or whatever. So take a look at something like that and say, okay, you pay an amount equal to X per kilometer driven. So you know that it's everywhere around the world more or less the same. So that
okay.
I was just wondering, how would you plan to get people to use this? Like, what would be your marketing? How would people find out about it? Or would you partner with Uber and like see if they would be interested in buying it? Or are you partnering with them?
It cannot be bought because it will not be mine and will not belong to nobody, right? So when we just open source it, so if they want to use it, they can. But then they would end up in a situation where they even have an even worse business model, like no. So I don't think it will benefit them, but we just make it open source, white label, and there are a few companies that we're talking to that want to try to at least do a few proof of concepts. So a big taxi company in Singapore, company in Germany, or just build it and deliver it to them and see what they will do to try to use it. But I would really prefer that a developer, a designer, and a good salesman would make the same kind of application, but then say, okay, I will just download it. I'll make the Bali travel app. I connect it to the Open Mobility Network for the transactions and to make sure we can operate. But I'm going to white label it. I'm going to design it specifically for the use case here in Bali, and then I'm going to market it and make sure that we make some kind of mechanism that drivers actually get a fair reward. So that would be the best type of adoption for me. That others will build something.
I'm just curious, the companies that came to you that said they were interested, the taxi companies that you mentioned, did they just come to you and approach you, or did you reach out to them? Like
I still have a really good network in the mobility industry, so they come to us, and then I have to explain them, yes, sorry, this is not working anymore.
Hey, but I have a new plan.
Yeah, I have a new plan, but it will take time. It's totally new. So
thank
you.
Yeah. So coming back to the question he asked, what about the user adoption? Because for me, I mean, if I want to book a Gojek, all I do is just open the application, get a ride, set the location, get a ride. He's here. When I reach there, just pay him by cash.
Yeah.
Done. Easy.
Yeah, super easy.
But in this case, I will have to deal with private keys and a different mechanism. Also, the payment will be virtual. It'll be online, right? It wouldn't be cash.
It's not possible.
Yeah. So that's what
Yeah, and I think in Indonesia, the mobility as a service domain really leapfrogged because of Grab and Gojek, right? So they are really doing a very, very good job. So to get adoption here, it will be more difficult, I think, to get adoption compared to Amsterdam, where you still have to travel with your card, many different types of applications. So it's we actually solve a problem there. The price of the services are really high, especially compared to Indonesia. So if we decrease the prices with 10-20%, it makes a lot of impact. And people might be, I think especially in the Netherlands and areas like Singapore, people are really open for new technology. So we have to more focus on these areas, I think, compared to where Gojek is active, because I think they are really doing a good job.
So you won't be focusing on this market, the Indonesian or the South
To be honest, my first mission was to say, okay, they're there, no matter what happened, there's still this challenge. So we decided to build something new technology, a new type of concept, and the rollout strategy, I haven't worked it out at all. So a good question.
Yeah, because
we can answer it in the next session.
No, I realize that because I'm 22 and I have friends down south, and when they ask me what do you do, I tell them I work in a blockchain company, and they don't even know what blockchain is, let alone blockchain. Most of them don't even know what Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
So having these people who use these services on a regular basis, explaining them what blockchain is firstly would be a task, and then eventually getting them to start using this.
Yeah.
But then again, like you said, if the price is 30% less from what they pay on a Gojek, why would you not use it?
Yeah. Prices are already pretty good in Gojek, of course, and then again, if you take a taxi in Amsterdam, it's really expensive. Also, if you live there, so if you can make a difference there, it would have a really good impact, I think. Secondly, yes, adoption will always be a challenge when we still have not solved the public-private key situation. And thirdly, I had another point, but I forgot it.
How do you plan to solve it? The public-private key, the whole thing. Do you all have anything in mind?
First of all, make it just super simple to create a wallet, right? So if you download the app, you don't have to take additional steps to set up the wallet. So click, 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 wallet is being generated for you. So that is the least we can do. And there are initiatives to leave the situation of the public-private key. So on NEO, there's some guys that I know that they invented the concept which would allow you not to use the public-private key situation, which is good. So, but we have to hope for other projects to solve that, because I'm not. My field is the mobility domain and not that specific situation. Oh yeah, I wanted to.
I don't know a lot, but I know that there are startups that are trying to solve that problem, because in many other blockchain applications, that is always the issue, or one big challenge. And I've just learned that there's some companies starting that they are trying to link the actual bank account to a crypto, like a blockchain bank account. So you could actually, when you're about to pay electronically, you could say, okay, do I want it to come from my credit card or from my wallet, my crypto wallet? And you could interchange those and make that decision at the point of sale for, potentially other things in the future. Like maybe it's to buy a coffee or a shirt or anything. But for this, it could be the same concept. Does that make sense?
Then the value of the token will also be different with every specific country, right? Because Indonesia considers rupiah as the legal tender.
Yeah, you have to take into account the fluctuations of the actual currency. So you can taint tokens and then say, okay, this token X is being backed by a rupiah. You can still spend it in Singapore, but then it has the value that it has at that moment. But it's a really complex thing to set it up. So you just first set it up backed by one currency.
I have one more, but I'll ask
you of course.
Later after the.
All right. Yeah, sure.
Is this like? Wait, okay. Thank you.
Is this like a peer-to-peer application, mobile application, where someone provides service and the other and the payment will do payment by platform by blockchain, cryptocurrency, and is this token or it works globally? So, I mean, is it private token or works as like a different country with different currency, fiat currency, or?
Yeah, so the cool thing, of course, is that yes, it is a peer-to-peer transaction always. That's just the nature of the technology. And secondly, if somebody just downloads the application and starts using it at another part of the world, you don't have any influence on it. So it's not a. If people start using it, it will be used in other countries. So there's no. The idea is not to regulate that.
Because
so yes, it's globally instantly because if it's an app store.
Okay, I mean once we have this token as a public, so it's difficult to maintain the value. So it becomes uncontrollable. I mean the value can be high or.
Yeah, but that's why you have the two tokens, right? One token for to incentivize the people who work on the network, and that's a speculative token as well. So you can make that the token that's on an exchange, for example, but that will not be the token that people use to travel. So you have two tokens: a stable token is backed by a currency, and a token that is differently, that we can just speculate, whatever.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
I think this is a very long-term view as well. Assuming that we have this implementation, let's say in India and in Indonesia. So in India, I have converted my 50,000 rupees to 50,000 these coins, open mobility coins, and then I come to Indonesia and I want to use this. What happens to those 50,000 coins? Is it like?
Yeah.
What about the value of the coin?
That is indeed a long-term question, but the idea is then that if we taint tokens, that we know that they are backed by a dollar, for example, and then you enter a different type of country where you can only spend them in rupiah, then you can use them at the conversion rate at that specific moment. So you can just still use them, but then at the rate of the value of that moment.
Okay.
Is the idea, but that's very complex. We really need banks to collaborate with us to solve that.
The governments to be cooperating.
Yeah.
And, to acknowledging that okay, they can be.
Yeah, and then what is a fair exchange rate? Because it's fluctuating all the time as well. So
you'll have to be partnering with the banks and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
You will need a license, assuming for the exchange rates and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but
there are foundations that are supported by the government that license out the electronic money license, and then if you use that, then you have also a gateway to a third-party bank account that is being monitored by such a foundation, and then you can partly solve these challenges.
Hey there, I was just curious if you're partnering with Blockchain Zoo in any way. Or are you guys just kind of friends, or do you work with this organization to have resources for this idea, or?
It would be a good idea. Or not partnering yet.
Okay,
so
just curious.
But I arrived like almost a year ago here with the idea of setting up the company in Singapore. So just now for 3-4 months, I'm spending much more time here in Indonesia. So my eyes are now here. So let's see. Would be great.
Yeah. Anything?
I had one more thing about the adoption. So what you can expect, of course, is that in situations where there is just no digital ticketing whatsoever, in public transport or in taxis, or then we really offer a nice solution, of course. If you know that I'm a rickshaw driver in India and I can just download the app and suddenly I'm part of a bigger network and more people can find me, I'll download that app, I'll tape it to my vehicle and people can start using it. So from that perspective, I would hope we can get some traction, but people need to know it, of course, so we need to get our marketing in order as well.
Yes.
does this algorithm or this whole mechanism, if so assuming I'm a user and I want to go, like I said, Ubud Central, so how does it prompt the drivers, or how does it choose the best driver for me? Is it based upon the one who's nearest and who is free, or does it give me prompt the drivers which are near me, and then they quote their price and then give me a list of their prices, and then I select the one that suits me the best?
These two factors, and as well a reputation score.
Okay.
So
the higher stars that you have,
yeah, but there are more variables, right? So maybe somebody can pick you up, but it will be later for it will be, you have to wait for 20 minutes or you have to wait for 5 minutes. So that's also worth something. So these factors will determine price, but many things we just haven't figured out yet. So good question.
Sorry, I mean, I just have my brain running.
That's really really
now,
nice.
I have so many questions, ideas. Also.
But that's why it's good for me to also do these sessions, right? So I get questions like, oh yeah, I just don't know. Sorry. So that the whole idea of making the next version of Uber is like 3-4 months old, right? So then our first step was to make a testnet that just runs and is more or less reliable, and then now we can start designing the application that we want to build. So we then have these questions, and most likely I will just build it super simple. That as a first release, where you have many of these challenges are just on a backlog of things that we need to tackle.
Yeah, I think it would be a very good use case over here in Bali, because firstly, the drivers over here, I mean, the ones in Ubud and Canggu are, according to me, are opposing the idea of Gojek, because they don't get to decide the pricing. Yeah. And then, but in this case, they are at least to some extent allowed to decide the pricing. So it's easy to get them start using it, and then eventually you can have these tool guides also, and all of these other people coming in.
Yeah.
So if there's more supply, then why will the users not come?
Yeah. In here, of course, you have in Ubud, Canggu, the big signs say no to Gojek, Grab, and Uber. So there is already a very negative sentiment from many drivers. So if we can use that sentiment in order to deliver them technology that they can still use, and you can still book a ride with them, but they have to. The big difference is, of course, that they have to work with transparent pricing, because otherwise they will still not be booked at all. And there are people who just charge 2 million to go from the airport to Ubud. I mean, come on. Then I really have a big incentive to get Gojek or Grab.
Yes.
So they still have to work on their pricing. But the idea is, of course, that from many of the drivers is, okay, if I get one ride every 2 days, that's totally fine with me.
Yeah.
So okay, I don't know if that's super efficient, but it's a mentality as well.
But yeah, I've also realized that in the last few years, many drivers back in India have protested against Uber and their incentivization, and because they have the whole control of the market, so then they dictate how much the drivers get, how much percent that the drivers get.
Yeah, that's even worse in India, where the drivers are lending money from Uber to buy the car, and now they cannot make enough money with Uber again because Uber lowered their wages.
Yes.
And now they cannot pay their vehicle back, and then
I think this is a whole bubble that's coming in, because so drivers are not able to pay the EMIs, the loans, and then that's why and they're not able to make a living.
Yeah, they are slaves of the Uber system.
Yes, so every day there are more cars that are going on sale than the people want to buy. And the problem with this is we have this mentality: if there's a car with a yellow number plate, which is a public transport car, we just don't want to buy it.
Yeah.
People are just against buying it because they think it's very harshly used, and it's gone through very rough conditions. This car wouldn't last. So
the price is really low.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people are not buying those cars as well. And these EMIs, these loans are going on default because there's no one buying, and these cars are just lying in the dump yards.
And I cannot imagine that you build a company and then do this. Right? I mean, come on. Yeah,
so that's why many people are going to the traditional jobs back again.
Yeah, they're leaving the as-a-service economy, the gig economy.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're leaving, and the cars are going, not selling, and this whole. I see it as a bubble.
It's definitely a temporary situation. Yeah.
You can't recover money. The banks cannot recover their money because there's no one to buy the cars.
And also, SoftBank will not put more money in Uber always. So it will have an end. So they need to make money at some moment in time. And just let's say we have a company that together with all of us with a scale of Uber, and we would look to each other and say, "Okay, shit, we're still losing money." And then the nature of the business model is really poorly designed, or they are working on something else that we just don't know. So, but yeah, it's overvalued and probably a temporary thing. Let's hope so. Yeah. Yeah, the idea is, of course, if they can rule out the driver, then we would have a different situation. So yeah, but I don't know when it will actually be a moment where that will be where we have fully autonomous taxis driving around. It will be 5 years or 25 years. I don't know, somewhere in that range probably. So. Yeah, it would be a good test to do it in Indonesia, that's for sure. But
anyway, so why blockchain?
Yeah, I put a slide in, but I think most of us just know these kinds of things, right? That we don't have to go deeply into this. I think it was already the last slide. Let me check. Yeah, we covered everything. Do you have any questions left?
Maybe it's just more fundamental, not about blockchain, but it's about you. I mean, why you decided to choose, like this? We all here believe in blockchain, right? But why? Everyone has personal, Yeah. So what's yours? What's your reason?
I like to stir up things, first of all. So I think personally that when I see a situation where it's just, come on, it's unjust, then I have a tendency to be very stubborn and say, okay, I'm just going to try to solve it. Nothing to lose. Just try to work on it, and have a lot of fun along the way. And the mobility domain, so I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, and my dad owned a big transportation company, and what he did is he bought other companies and he digitized the work process back in the 80s. So we always had new technology around us as well. We're one of the first on the internet. We had even an electric vehicle back in the 90s. So I think looking back, that seed has been planted a long time ago. So, but my personal thing is that I like to stir up things that are not really an honest situation.
Awesome.
So that's how the dots connect.
Which dots? Many.
So, coming from your father, that he was adopting kind of new technologies.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was like 5-6 years old, we already had computers at our house, and for me that was normal, and he incentivized us always to just tear it apart, see if you can put it back together. So yeah, and then I studied somehow sociology, which also helps, right? So you have mobility from my background, technology from a personal background, and then sociology. If you combine these three things, then you quickly end up doing something like this. It's a super logical consequence.
Yes.
All right. Great. Yeah, and feel free to ask questions later. Thank you for now, and thank you for everyone watching as well, if they are still there. Right. Thanks.